Loka Abaya National Park is a protected area in the Sidama region of southern Ethiopia. It lies within Loka Abaya Warda in the main Ethiopian Rift, southwest of Hawassa, and several hundred kilometers from Addis Ababa. The park occupies a portion of the Rift Valley landscape that includes volcanic hills, extensive grasslands, patches of woodland, riparian forests along the Bilate River, and the northern shoreline and wetlands of Lake Abaya. The park's area is commonly reported as approximately 500 square kilometers, about 50,000 hectares, of which a notable fraction includes inland water and wetland, associated with Lake Abaya and seasonal floodplains. Its altitudinal range is roughly between 1,000 and 1,600 meters above sea level, producing a warm tropical climate with two rainy seasons, main rains July to September and lighter rains February to April, and a pronounced dry interval that shapes vegetation and wildlife movements. Loka Abaya contains a mosaic of habitats: open savanna and grassland, acacia-dominated woodland, riparian forest corridors, wetlands, rocky volcanic outcrops, and agricultural mosaics along its boundaries. The combination of rift lakes, rivers, and hills supports high structural habitat diversity, which in turn underpins moderate to high species richness for mammals, birds, reptiles, and plants compared with surrounding heavily cultivated landscapes. Vegetation surveys and ecological studies highlight heterogeneous plant assemblages driven by soil fertility derived from volcanic parent material and varied hydrological regimes. Mammal communities in Loka Abaya include a mix of common East African savanna species and several species of conservation concern. Field studies and camera trap surveys have recorded medium and large mammals such as African buffalo, hippopotamus, in waterways, African leopard, striped hyena, warthog, and several antelope species. Published research and systematic surveys indicate the historical or intermittent presence of African wild dog, Lycaon pictus, in the park's mosaic of habitats, and emphasize that large carnivores and megafauna persist at locally variable densities. Conservation assessments recommend continued monitoring of these populations to clarify status and inform anti-poaching priorities. Avifauna in the park is diverse. Bird surveys have documented numerous resident and migratory species across wetland, woodland, and open habitats. Shorebirds, waterfowl, and other wetland-associated birds utilize the Lake Abaya shoreline and floodplains during wet periods, while savanna and forest species occupy upland and gallery forest patches. Published bird inventories and fieldwork have stressed the park's importance for regional bird conservation and for filling knowledge gaps about species distributions in the Central Rift Valley. Continued standardized monitoring is valuable to detect seasonal and annual shifts in abundance related to rainfall variability and human land use. Aquatic and wetland systems around Lake Abaya and rivers in the park support fish communities and are important for hippopotamus and crocodiles, while also providing water resources for communities and livestock. Wetland vegetation and floodplain dynamics are crucial for breeding and feeding of aquatic and semi-aquatic species. The lakeshore and marshes also act as natural buffers that moderate seasonal flooding and sustain local livelihoods through fishing and grazing. These wetland functions underline the park's role in regional hydrological resilience and ecosystem service provision. Human communities live in and around the park. Local livelihoods are based on mixed smallholder agriculture, livestock keeping, fishing, and harvest of forest products. Traditional enset, false banana. Cultivation, cereal crops, and coffee are common across Sidama, and agricultural expansion, settlement growth, and resource extraction at the park edge represent primary pressures on habitat. Community interest in benefit sharing from tourism and co-management has driven research into community-based ecotourism as a mechanism to both deliver livelihoods and reduce destructive resource use. Major conservation challenges for Loka Abaya include habitat loss and fragmentation from agriculture, overgrazing, illegal hunting and snaring, human-wildlife conflict, notably crop raiding by herbivores and occasional predation by carnivores, invasive species, and limited capacity for on-the-ground management and law enforcement. Several academic studies Environmental assessments and local stakeholders reports recommend strengthening community engagement, improving park governance, expanding ecological monitoring, and creating incentives for conservation-friendly land uses in buffer zones. Opportunities identified for conservation and sustainable development include establishing or expanding community-based tourism initiatives that link local cultural experiences, Sidama coffee culture, crafts, and festivals, with guided wildlife viewing, bird watching, boat trips on Loka Abaya, and nature walks. Research projects and environmental NGOs have proposed participatory habitat restoration, alternative livelihoods, and environmental education programs as complements to formal protection. Improved infrastructure for regulated visitation, training for local guides, and transparent revenue-sharing mechanisms are recurring recommendations in stakeholder studies. Scientific research has been active in Loka Abaya. Peer-reviewed studies addressed vegetation composition, medium and large mammal diversity, and bird community structure, providing baseline data critical for management planning. Ecological monitoring using transects, camera traps, and block sampling has produced spatially explicit information about species occurrence, relative abundance, and habitat associations that can guide priority actions such as targeted anti-poaching patrols and riparian restoration. Continued collaboration between universities, regional authorities, and local communities is emphasized to expand long-term data sets. While online tourism and visitation are currently limited but growing, local tour operators and regional tourism platforms describe the park as a scenic part of the Rift Valley with potential for nature tourism, linked to Hawassa and other southern region attractions. Any tourism development should balance community benefits with conservation safeguards, including waste management, regulated access to sensitive lake shores, and training of local guides. Pilot, community-led tourism models offer a pathway to test sustainable approaches before large-scale infrastructure investment. The park was designated to protect regional biodiversity and ecosystem services, variously reported as established between 2009 and 2011 in different sources. Local and regional authorities, researchers, and conservation groups have called for clearer management arrangements, increased funding, and formal collaboration with adjacent communities to achieve sustainable protection and equitable benefit sharing. Strengthened institutional capacity and participatory governance are cited as prerequisites to improve enforcement and conservation outcomes. Conservation priorities recommended by experts include expanding and enforcing anti-poaching patrols, creating buffer zones and sustainable grazing plans to reduce edge conflicts, restoring degraded riparian corridors and wetlands to support waterbirds and aquatic fauna, developing community-based ecotourism with tangible local income streams, and implementing long-term ecological monitoring to detect population trends for key species like leopard, wild dog, and hippo. Integrating gender-sensitive livelihood initiatives and youth employment schemes strengthens social feasibility. Research and community engagement success stories include small-scale pilot efforts to involve local guides, village tourism enterprises, and education programs that raise awareness about the park's values. Scaling such initiatives will require investment, transparent revenue-sharing arrangements, and attention to social safeguards. Monitoring, adaptive management, and inclusive planning are repeatedly emphasized across studies as essential to reconcile conservation goals with local development needs. In summary, Loka Abaya National Park is a biologically and geographically distinctive protected area in Sidama Region, whose combination of lakeshore wetlands, Rift Valley hills, savannas, and forest patches supports diverse species and important ecosystem services. Sustaining these values depends on addressing human pressures through integrated conservation, community participation, and targeted science-based management that links livelihoods with long-term protection of habitats and species. Continued research, participatory governance, and measured development of nature-based tourism form the core pathways recommended by stakeholders to secure the park's ecological and social future.